Well, as we step back into lesson 6, I want to go ahead and begin finishing up the idea of the manor, and then we'll get to the town in just a moment. But a couple other things that are going to be there, like we saw in the image, there's going to be a church, but there's often going to be a well too. I think that you guys are aware, or just a natural spring. This is where they're going to get their water. It's so critical to think about having fresh water, especially in a time of sickness, where disease is rampant. We've seen even now in 21st century America, one of the things that you guys noted early on would be that people would go and gather up just tons of water. Water is such an essential thing, even for us today. So you imagine then to be able to have fresh water was going to be of paramount. But you're also going to see there being land that is going to be broken up. There's going to be the Lord's land. That's the piece or the chunk that he owns, and that's going to be called the demesne. The demesne. The rest of it is going to be the peasants' land. But as you think about how this is all going to be formed, I want you to be aware that it's going to be farmed using something called the three-field system. Perhaps you've heard it a different way. It's going to be also called crop rotation. There's going to be three pieces of land that are going to be rotated. One piece is going to be for the fall planting. There's going to be another piece for the spring planting. And then there's going to be a piece that is going to be fallow. And there's going to be a rotation within each of these three strips over a year. And then the next year, it would kind of move up. So the piece that was fallow would become the fall planting. The piece that had been the fall planting would now be the spring planting. Spring would become the fallow plant or area. And what fallow means is that it is going to be empty. It's given a chance to recover. All the nutrients that are there is going to now be restored so that by the next fall, that area is going to now be fresh. And actually, it's given basically a year off so that it can be ready to go for the next fall. But there's going to be crop rotation within this fall, spring, and fallow. Now, as you think about your workload, you would be expected to work the Lord's land at least 3 days a week. That would mean, and hopefully you guys can kind of do the math, that at least 3 days a week, perhaps 4, but whatever is left over, you would be given at max 3 days for your own work. That would be farming your own crops so that you would have enough to feed your family. Now, you might say, well, Mr. Hare, there's 7 days in a week. That's true, but I think that you guys have heard the Sabbath. They're going to be expected to take Sunday off to now go to church. There isn't going to be work on that seventh day of the week. This is going to be their break. Now, when we think about the plan of the town and how it's laid out, there's going to be, as time goes on, a kind of move back to the town. When the manor system had been developed, people had been in towns, but then they all scattered. That was where the work was, on the manor, and so they left the towns. But these villages that had begun to form at the foundation of the manor were now going to be where people had taken up residence, and those began to swell into towns, these cities where people are going to exist. Two main things are going to happen as it moves from a village into a town or a city. Two key things are going to change. First, the houses are going to go up. Instead of them being one-room cottages, you're going to see multi-story, maybe even as high as 3 stories. I don't know about you. I only lived in a 3-story house for 2 years of my life, and really it was only 2 stories. It had a basement, but other than that, I've been in 1-story places most of my life. Maybe you guys have a 2-story place, but to think about 2 to 3 stories, going to be a big deal. But you're also going to start to see walls popping up around these towns. There's an opportunity now, instead of them going back to the castle, this is going to be a built-in protection 24 hours a day that is going to give an extra layer of security to the people. The biggest building in the town is going to be the church. I'll show you a picture of that in just a second. And there's going to be an opportunity to connect with other people in the marketplace. We've talked about those throughout the year. Let's go ahead and see a picture of it. It's a little bit cartoonish, but I think that it gives a good image of what's going to be happening in these towns. You can see the castle at the very top there. Feels like kind of farther away. Maybe you can even see some windmills out in the fields there, some strips of land that are going to be divided up. You can see the homes that have started to go to 2 and 3 stories. Now, I don't know if you're familiar with that material, but that's called thatch. It's basically straw. We'll talk about why that's a danger in quite a bit, or in the next slide rather. But here's something that's a little bit gross. They do not have indoor plumbing. They have what are called chamber pots, so that you use the restroom, and then usually in the morning you would throw it out typically into the streets. If you were at one of these houses by the river, you can throw it out into the river, but you can imagine there's a guy dumping into the river, maybe not the best choice of words. He is unloading the dirt there into the river. You can see women toward the middle bottom of the picture doing laundry. You definitely wouldn't want to go swimming in the stream. You can see up at the top there is a wall, some guys standing guard at the wall, also at the bottom right. The biggest building, like we talked about, is a church there in the lower left. And then just above that is going to be the marketplace. Now, I don't know if you guys ever grew up doing Where's Waldo. That was something that was fun for us as a family growing up. And some years ago, I think it's probably been about 2 or 3 years ago, a student said, "Mr. Hare, this feels like a Where's Waldo picture." And so I brought it up, or they did, I don't remember, but I went ahead and inserted the Where's Waldo. And I think perhaps if you've done that before, you have found him by now. He's on the bridge. And students have, when I've talked about this, they've kind of begun to look, and I've quickly removed him, like I did there, and they kind of freak out, and I'll bring them back and go back and forth. And there's this kind of moment where it's like, am I losing my mind here? What's happening? But anyhow, as you look at that, you can kind of get a sense of the chaos that's going to be happening in these towns. They're definitely not nice places, neat places. They're muddy and messy. It's not exactly like what we're used to in today's world by any means. Now you can see a marketplace there, kind of that area that we mentioned before. That's going to be something I'll zero in on as we finish up here. In general, the conditions are very, very poor. It's not a place that you would say, hey, I'm comfortable. This is kind of high-class living. In fact, overall, there's going to be garbage and waste just chucked into the street. And you can imagine because of that, and coupled with the thatch, the straw roofs, there's going to be disease and fire that is going to be rampant. Overall, it is going to be a dangerous place even to live. Fire, if it began, would often hop from house to house. It was going to be a scary time as well. Now, in the marketplace, you're going to see people given an opportunity to now sell their wares, sell things that they had made. Merchants are going to begin to sell items, almost like a farmer's market, if you will, but it's of a variety of different goods. Typically, what they would do is they would hang a symbol above either their booth or their shop place that would have a symbol of what was happening or what was being sold there. Typically, if you think about a pretzel, obviously that would be like a baker. An anvil might be a blacksmith. A shoe might be a cobbler. All different jobs that, again, are going to be existing at that time within the marketplace. I want to go ahead and share this with you. A student last year said, and I grabbed the image admittedly from the internet, but said this is a screen capture from a game. Maybe you've played this before. I haven't, but as you look at it, this is going to be kind of, you get sense this is a darker image. And I think that this is probably more true of how it was at that time versus kind of the glowing nature of the last one. This feels a little bit more realistic. You can see there, dead smack in the middle, some fruit. You can see some bread off to the side there of the street. Obviously, you're going to see a lot of different things that are out there, even just animals around. It's not a real nice place. Not a real nice place. Well, different things that you could experience within the confines of a city. If you have any questions, even as we think about the middle part of the week, please let me know. Otherwise, I will talk to you guys on Wednesday. Have a good beginning of the week, and we'll see you later.